everyone, and welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders Airsoft podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Phil.
And I'm Pat.
We really hope you enjoy the show. Today, we're going to be talking about a critical part of every airsofter's kit, eye protection. From shooting glasses and tactical goggles to paintball masks and Russian-style face shields, there are a ton of options to choose from. I know that for myself, I went through a few different styles and models before I found something that I truly liked. And I know that for Pat, he was using larger tactical goggles for years to fit his prescription glasses until very recently he got laser eye surgery.
Yeah, I was really disappointed. I spent $4,000 and I can't shoot lasers out of my eyes. It's very disheartening.
That's right.
But we really want to stress that in terms of pieces of your airsoft kit not to cheap out on, your goggles or your eyeglasses, whatever you're using to protect your eyes, should be priority number one. Because basically the only part of you that can be damaged while playing airsoft that they can't fix on an easy, casual basis is your eyeballs.
Yeah, and we're not saying you have to go out and spend $400 on eyepro. That's not at all what we're trying to say. What we are trying to say is that your eyepro should not be the piece of kit that you decide, I'm going to spend $7 on it and it'll be fine, right? You should be looking for a piece of kit that will reliably protect your eye and is specifically impact rated to resist the kind of projectiles that are going to be being shot at you. So in North America, that means, an ANSI rating, so ANSI Z87, but there are other equivalent ratings in Europe and across the world, including EN rating and CSA rating and so on.
You can get good tactical goggles. Lots of surplus stores have ESS goggles that are quite good for not a whole lot of money, 20, 30, 40 bucks.
Before we really get into it, there's one piece that we want to address, and this one's a bit of an elephant in the room because some people swear by them, but we really want to drive home the point that mesh goggles are not appropriate eye protection. Lots of players will say, oh, they're fine for airsoft purposes, blah, blah, blah. That is factually incorrect. Mesh goggles are very, very dangerous. So not only will they not effectively protect you against higher powered airsoft rifles, but some of them can actually cause BBs, especially cheaper BBs, to fragment on impact and that sends plastic shards into your eyes. We've talked about this before in our videos, but it's very, very important to understand that as far as eye protection goes, mesh goggles are right out. You should never consider them. You should never use them. That goes for the ones that are mesh and also the ones that are like a steel plate with some holes in them. We've seen those before. They are just no bueno. You should not use them at all. Quite frankly, your eyes are just too precious to put on the line by trying to use these types of eye protections. And the argument for using Mesh Eye Pro is, well, it doesn't fog up. Well, there are ways that you can work around fogging to make sure that it doesn't impact you in the game, and we're going to talk about that in this episode. But you really should not be considering mesh goggles.
At the end of the day, whether or not your goggles fog up while you were playing airsoft, and oh no, I got shot while I was playing airsoft because my goggles fogged up, is a far cry from, oh god, I got shot in the face and my mesh goggles failed and now there's BB in my eye.
Yeah. So if you're using mesh goggles, you're risking temporary or permanent blindness. This is a hobby. It's just not worth that kind of risk.
If you own mesh goggles and you're listening to this podcast, please throw them out immediately and go buy something decent before you play next.
And so that's a good segue into what exactly is something decent. So as I said at the start, there's a lot of different appropriately rated goggles out there in a variety of different form factors. So there are, low profile glasses versus sort of larger size that can accommodate eyeglasses. And there are some that have built-in Face Pro, some that don't, and so on and so forth. So first, let's talk about low profile. So when you look at low profile eye pro, you can have your shooting glasses. So shooting glasses are simply what they sound like. They're a pair of glasses. You put them on your face, and they are, of course, ANSI rated, so they are ballistic rated.
They tend to have a wraparound, so they're protecting the sides of your eyes as well as the front.
And they sometimes have a lanyard around the back, so if they fall off your face, at least they're not going to fall off your body. You should be able to put them back on. Obviously, if they don't have a tight strap, then you kind of run the risk of having them shot off your face. If they take a BB, you'll probably be okay, but the goggles might fall off your face, which is something that, you generally want to avoid. So if you are looking at using shooting glasses, what we would recommend is getting a sort of strap that you can sort of tighten around the back to make sure that they're stuck on your face, they're not going anywhere. You can also get other types of low profile goggles, such as the Smith Optics Boogie regulators, which are very, very low profile and do have a strap and they tighten around your head. And it's very much the same principle. The only thing is they seal completely around your eyes, as opposed to shooting glasses, which sort of stay on your face, but they have a an opening at the bottom.
And certainly in any environment where like airsoft frag grenades like tornadoes are going to be used, or pyro grenades are going to be used, I would absolutely prefer full seal eye protection. We tend to feel that it's sort of, player's choice here to some extent. But my recommendation, if you're going to go buy eyepro, is absolutely to buy something that seals around your eyes, because you really just don't want to deal with the negative consequences.
Talking about form factor, I mean, after low profile, you can get sort of more of a medium profile. That would be sort of akin to the types of glasses that we're using, which is like Advancer V12s. There's also the Revision Bullet Ants. Basically, they have, an individual lens for each eye. It's not like a full panel. It really is. It's full seal. We find that's a pretty good medium. And again, they tie in all the way at the back, so you can have them nice and tight on your head. But because you have the individual panes, if you have fogging, you can have fogging issues in one eye, not the other. So you have a bit more flexibility that way.
Also, when we're talking about low profile stuff, right, we mean things that are going to be relatively close to your face so that you can get in down tight on your weapon. They make it easier to use magnified optics, especially airsoft ones, which often have poor eye relief. And they make it easier to get a cheek weld with your rifle so that you're, as down and close into your sights as you can manage, right?
Yeah, as a bit of a side note, that's why we typically don't enjoy, mesh face masks or full like paintball goggles, because it prevents us from getting a good cheek weld, a good aim down our sights, good sight picture. But that's a conversation for another day.
Well, and it's worth noting, just, I think, before we move off that topic, that Phil and I don't prefer those. We've used a Shima cloth wrap around our face for our entire airsoft career. But there are players on our team who use paintball masks, who use plastic or mesh face protection. They're definitely a viable thing for you, and we don't mean to suggest you shouldn't use them. They're just not our preference, and we've had no issues.
Yeah, for sure. Taking a step up from there, you also have your full-size tactical goggles, right? So that's like your ESS Land-Ops goggles, your Revision Locusts. These are like a full-on tactical goggle, the types that you see soldiers wearing overseas, SWAT guys and like police videos and stuff. But basically, they're a single pane of typically dual paned lenses to help fogging, and they provide tremendous amount of protection on your face. They're of course much bigger and chunkier, but also if you're wearing eyeglasses, typically you can fit your eyeglasses inside of those goggles. Some of them will also accept an RX insert, like a prescription glasses insert. So you can get the prescription lenses put in on this little insert that just clipped into your goggles, so you have both at the same time.
So those inserts are definitely a great option, but they're also quite expensive. So for many years, I ran a pair of ESS Land-Ops. There's a specific model of them that is designed to accommodate prescription glasses. It was fantastic. They're really comfortable. They fogged up very rarely. They only fogged up in sort of the warmest, most humid days here. And even then, they were pretty excellent. They were comfortable. They've taken more BBs than any other thing I own, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, they're fantastic. So I fully recommend and endorse those. And you can get them fairly cheap. Last summer, I bought a pair for a friend of mine at a surplus store for $40.
You can also get some of these larger tactical goggles that have a built-in fan to help with fogging. That's certainly one added feature that you have from the larger profile glasses, because they wouldn't be able to fit in like smaller glasses.
Yeah, no, that can be really good. They're not the best for sneaking because the fan is pretty audible.
Yeah, that's true.
But if you're playing sort of Speedsoft or you're playing, CQB kind of stuff, they're great because they keep you able to see.
A couple of other honorable mentions when it comes to eyepro. You've got your face shields. So you sometimes will see Russian-style full face shields. You'll also see like riot gear full face shields. These are basically like Lexan covers that just cover your face.
A word of caution about those. Obviously they don't seal on the bottom unless you have some sort of collar underneath them. So you do need to be careful about that in terms of stuff coming upward at you. And a lot of places that sell airsoft gear sell cheap reproduction versions of those that are not ANSI-rated. And you really need to make sure the one you're buying is going to be ANSI-rated if you intend to use it as your primary protection for an airsoft game.
Absolutely. So if you are not sure, our recommendation is wear your eye protection underneath your face shield, right?
Absolutely.
So if you are wearing your Russian face shield or your ride gear because, you know, you've got a GIGN kit that you're trying to rock, you should be wearing your eye protection underneath that.
It's very much a better safe than sorry in one of the more drastic available ways.
Another one that you see people sometimes wearing on the field is gas masks, right? There are surplus gas masks that are available. There's also real world gas masks that you can buy. They generally tend to be pretty expensive, but if you're buying a modern gas mask, typically it will be ballistic rated, especially if it's meant for military use. You can also get respirators with full face shield, like a 3M respirator. Again, those would be ANSI rated because they're meant for working in an environment like if you're grinding material or all this kind of stuff.
Do absolutely make sure to check the specifications of anything you're buying that you're thinking about using for that purpose.
But especially thinking about gas masks, like Patrick said, you want to make sure that they are rated correctly. If you're using a surplus gas mask, especially if it's an older style gas mask, maybe it's, like a World War II light anti-gas respirator, for example, like our teammate Johnny has for his impression kit, or you're using a surplus like a Soviet bloc gas mask, those might have glass lenses. Well, guess what? Those are not ANSI rated. So you want to make sure that if you're going to be wearing that as your primary source of eye protection, it actually is rated. And if it isn't, then you need to be wearing a supplementary form of eye protection. And in some gas masks, it might be difficult to do that, right?
And if you end up buying, a World War II era respirator or something else that has glass lenses, or that you're not absolutely certain, use it for photos, use it for fashion soft, pose in it all you want, but don't trust your eyes to it in a game if you're not absolutely sure it will protect you.
Absolutely. While we're on the topic of gas masks, playing a game in a gas mask is a tall order. Gas masks restrict your breathing. Most soldiers who wear gas masks and fight are doing that because that's literally their only option. If they don't wear a gas mask, they will likely suffer some sort of horrible fate, right? And so consequently, they're not meant for comfort. They're literally just meant to keep you alive. And if you're wearing a gas mask at an airsoft game and you're running around and you're doing all this stuff, it's going to be very difficult for you to breathe, especially if you have like a canister and something like that that's actually plugged into it. If it's plugged into nothing and you're just sucking in like air, that might still be okay, but it's going to cause you to sweat. It's going to cause you to breathe relatively heavily, and you will actually have a lot of condensation that builds up in your gas mask. It's something you should experience for yourself. If you're thinking about wearing gas mask at an airsoft game and you know it's rated and it's safe to protect your eyes, put it on and go outside and run for 5 minutes and then make your decision, because I think what you'll find is you probably don't want to do that any more than you really need to. It's hard to overstate that. It's hard to breathe in a gas mask. And if you're doing it for the art, if you're doing it because it's cool, then that's one thing. But again, our angle is always what is going to be effective for us on the field. And operating in a gas mask is a tall order, right? It's challenging. So you really want to take some time and consider whether or not that's what you really want to do as your primary form of eye protection.
It's also worth noting that surplus gas masks are typically going to run you more money than a pair of decent goggles will.
The last piece of eye protection, which we haven't covered so far, and is a bit of a taboo word in the airsoft community, is paintball goggles. Paintball goggles are actually a great option for airsoft. You know what? Paintballers have been doing this longer than we have when it comes to this type of gaming.
Absolutely.
And they have excellent goggles. They've got very good dual-paned thermal lenses. You think about like a dye mask or something like that. They are extremely effective. They are very good goggles. They don't fog. They provide excellent protection to your face.
They're wicked if you're going to do CQB or speed soft or kill house kind of stuff, because they'll keep the teeth in your head. And they're designed for working indoors and in warm environments, and they're designed to be as good as they can make them, really. And the benefits to you are tremendous. People go, oh, well, I don't want to wear that because, it's brightly colored, or, just because, airsoft's better than paintball. They're different sports. But, if something from paintball is useful to us, man, you bet I will take it, right? I've said before, I don't play a lot of indoor kill house games. If I did play a lot of them, I would own a good paintball mask.
Absolutely. And the other piece around it too is if you just want the goggles, A lot of those masks are removable, either, on purpose, or you can just cut them off, right? You can modify them to suit your purpose, and you can get the benefit of those dual pane goggles to protect you and your eyes during the game if you don't want that full face protection. I know, as we said before, Pat and I don't really wear lower face protection. We find it's hard to get a good set picture, to get a good cheek weld, but if we had to, if the field regulations mandated it, for example, we absolutely would have that type of mask over like a mesh mask or something like that.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. If they were to change the regulations at our local field saying, you have to have lower face protection, I would just go buy a good paintball mask. I'd actually go to my friend who's been playing for paintball for 20 years and go, hey man, what is the best paintball mask I can buy? And just do that.
Now, the downside to the larger paintball style goggles is that they're not usually intended to be worn with a helmet. Unlike military goggles, which are intended to be worn with some sort of helmet, either like a Mitch helmet or a Pasquet or a fast helmet, paintball goggles are typically not meant to be worn with a helmet. In some cases, you might find they don't actually mate very well, but not in all cases, right? So it's definitely the kind of thing that if you're considering getting one, you should check out at your local paintball store, try and put it on, put your helmet on, and see if both will work together. And if they do, then you'll be well served.
And I suspect many airsofters know people who play paintball. Ask them for recommendations. There are a ton of paintballers who are into fairly milsim versions of that sport, right? Who have been using military-style helmets with their paintball gear forever because they want to do that sort of impressionist kit. And they'll be able to tell you, yeah, no, this is a really good mask. And yes, it'll absolutely mate with the helmet you're using.
So one of the pieces is, of course, the fit and the fitment of your goggles and how they work for you on the field. One piece is fogging, right? And fogging, in my airsoft experience and the years that we've played, has been the source of lots of like myths and lots of old wives' tales and lots of like home remedies and all this kind of stuff. What can you do to stop your goggles from fogging? Oh, I washed mine with baby shampoo before every game and that helps. Oh, I scrubbed mine with toothpaste. Oh, I used cat crap. Oh, I used this, that, the other thing. Oh, I never get fogging because whatever.
I rub it thrice with my grandfather's dentures and that prevents fogging.
So number one thing is that fogging is often caused by condensation. And what happens is you've got water droplets that build up inside your goggles as a result of the environment that you're operating in. There is very little that you can do to prevent that from happening, right? You can cover a goggle with a hydrophobic coating, which actually just causes water not to build up on your lenses at all, which is one of the methods that is used for anti-fogging. But over time, those coatings wear down. As the sweat of your brow damages the coating of those glasses, they need to be replaced. The lenses no longer have the same protection against anti-fogging. And the reality is that every single pair of goggles, whichever you buy, even the best dual-paned thermal paintball goggles, will fog under some conditions. Don't believe me? Go to the woods, find a moist area, slap on those goggles, and just breathe normally and see what happens. They are going to fog up. And you can make things worse if you're wearing a mask, if you're wearing like a shima, you're blowing hot air up. There's a lot of things that will make it worse, but every single pair of goggles will fog. That being said, there's certain things you can do to help prevent it.
Yeah, well, it's a matter of mitigation and of making it so that, yes, okay, my goggles are going to fog up, but like making it so that they fog in such a way that it doesn't put you at risk of not being able to see someone popping out to shoot you during a game.
Absolutely. First of all, there are goggles that have mechanical built-in features to help deal with fogging. So, as we previously talked about, there are goggles that have a fan that you can turn on, which sort of helps airflow in the goggles, and it helps dry out the air and allows the fog to clear up. There are goggles like the ones that myself and Patrick and several of our teammates wear that actually open up at the sides, and it allows airflow all throughout the pane of the glass. So it doesn't expose your eye to BBs because the crack is very small, but it allows air to flow through and prevents buildup of fog that way, or helps clear it up. And especially if you can get in an area where there's a bit of a breeze to blow through, and then within seconds it's gone. It's the same thing with a lot of like boogie regulators, or there's the Bole X800 that actually have the pane separated that allows air to flow all the way through.
The ESS land ops that I wore for years have a opening around them that's covered by a foam, like a mesh foam, and then underneath the foam is a plastic mesh, and that's meant to keep dust and debris out. But if you're somewhere where there isn't a dust issue, you can remove that foam and it will increase the airflow tremendously.
Absolutely. That's a very easy sort of hack that you can do. And we have that done in our V12s as well. There was a little bit of extra foam. You take that off and you're off to the races. aside from having a more open sort of goggle that allows more airflow, and aside from having a fan, then there are anti-fog sprays that you can use. These are sort of temporary hydrophobic coatings. And what that means is you spray this on your goggles, you sort of rub it on, and then water won't cling to it. It will bead and immediately drip off. And that will work if there's any water, so if there's any rain or anything like that, but also an environment where your goggles are fogging because the moisture level is very high.
So in Newfoundland and St. John's in particular, towards August, you tend to get very humid days, right? Upwards of 80%, 90% humidity, often without any rain, and often with warm weather. And on those days, hydrophobic coatings are great because moisture beads up and runs down your goggles on the inside, but it doesn't fog up. It doesn't make it so you can't see. It just impedes your vision a tiny bit, where without the hydrophobic coating, you are blind.
Absolutely. I just want to add, I've been using these Advancer V12 goggles for years. Pat just started using them as a result of his laser eye surgery. They were actually the standard issue goggle of the British military for a while. There's a lot of them available on eBay. But in particular, what you can do is you can very easily swap out the lenses. So the frame that I own right now, I've owned for several years. The lenses that I'm using, however, I just bought this year. They're brand new. And you can get yellow lenses, clear lenses, tinted lenses, whatever. But the whole idea is that after a while, these lenses get damaged, right? The coating get damaged, especially if they take BB hits.
Which they're gonna.
When your goggles take a hit from a BB, you really want to take some time to see if there's any damage and if you need to replace the lens. And so we would highly recommend you look at goggles where you have that option to replace the lens when it gets worn. And this will serve two purposes. Obviously, if the lens takes a hit and it is damaged, you can replace it without having to buy a completely new set of goggles. So that's number one. But number two, as we said before, a lot of these lenses come with an anti-fog coating on the inside, like out of the factory. But over time, that anti-fog coating gets damaged, gets worn down, and it's not as effective as it was. And if that's the case with your lenses, and you can interchange them, you can easily order a new one and just replace it.
It's also worth mentioning that most of the time these replacement lenses, in addition to being quite available, are not very expensive. For either the Landops or the Advancers, you're looking at $20 for a new pair of lenses, right? Or a new single lens for the ones that only have a single lens. Maybe $5 shipping on eBay. That's extremely affordable to replace something. So, and they're not consumable. Like, you're not going to wear them out in a season or a year of play. But if you've been using the same set of lenses in your goggles for 2 or 3 years, and you're finding they're fogging up a lot, and you go, man, I don't think these fogged up a lot last year, it might be a good time to replace those lenses.
On the flip side of that, at the start we talked about not cheaping out on eyepro. I think it's worth mentioning that you can get ANSI-rated eyepro that is perfectly serviceable for airsoft for very low cost. If you want to, you can find pairs of ANSI-rated eyepro in clear, in tinted, for $5 to $10 Canadian from building supply shops and all this kind of stuff. Is it really going to be what we recommend all the time? No, absolutely not. However, there's absolute value in having a couple of those pairs in your kit at any given time. Why? Because you might play a game where somebody forgets their eyepro, or your eyepro might get damaged and you can't use it anymore. Well, then you'll be really glad to have a backup set that didn't cost you an arm and a leg, right?
And, if you're just starting out and you've listened to this and you think, man, I really want a set of those Advancer goggles. Well, you can go grab a set of nice cheap shop goggles, shop glasses essentially, to protect your eyes that are ANSI rated while you wait for them to come in the mail after you've thrown out your mesh.
Yeah, that's right. The last piece that we want to talk about when it comes to your goggles is the actual tint of your lens. Obviously, you have a lot of clear lenses out there, which is fine. You also have lenses that are tinted, so it's sometimes referred to as smoked, but basically they're sunglasses, right? And to be clear, before we dive into this, you can also get like fashion airsoft sunglasses that are ANSI rated. So if you want to look cool with your reflective shades, but also be protected from BBs, you can certainly do that.
And there's a significant chunk of the paintball industry that is all about like cool, crazy chromed mirrored finishes and stuff. So if that's really the place you want to go, you have loads of options there as well.
But for our purposes, where we're talking about, being effective and camouflage and all this kind of stuff, a mirror coating is probably not going to do it. But you can also get tinted lenses for military goggles typically. Service people will be issued with a set of clear lenses and a clear of tinted lenses because, especially if you're operating in the day, you might want to have that extra shade to protect your eyes from UV and all this kind of stuff. But another thing that you can consider is colored tints. And in particular, the yellow tint. This is something that I've been doing for years and I really, really recommend it. So without going too much into detail about it, there are different wavelengths of light, and in particular, blue light tends to scatter more than other colors of light. It's called Rayleigh scattering, and that's why the sky is blue and not black, even though it shows in space and all this kind of stuff. I won't bore you with the details, but the point is, blue light scatters a lot. And if you have days where things seem a bit mistier or you don't have a lot of definition, that's typically because it's a bright sunny day and there's a lot of Rayleigh scattering that's occurring that's interfering with your vision. Yellow tinted lenses actually cut down on the Rayleigh scattering a lot. And so they basically make things a lot crisper. And if you've ever watched TV and seen an ad for like HD vision lenses, that is specifically what they're talking about. They're talking about yellow tinted lenses that cut down Rayleigh scattering to bring everything into sharper contrast. I've been using yellow tinted lenses for years, and one of the areas where they're particularly effective is by drawing increased contrast on green versus green. So when you put on yellow lenses, it takes a little while for your eyes to get accustomed to the new weirdness that's going on. But in very short order, your brain sort of accommodates for this new tint. And what you'll notice is you can pick out green colors a lot better. And as you can imagine, if you have someone who is wearing green camo, hiding in a green tree, it can be hard to see them. But with yellow tinted lenses, it actually makes it a lot easier for you to spot that green on green, and motion will become more apparent to you, and that helps you on the field.
And if you're like me and you're skeptical of this, because I ran smoked lenses as my primary lens in my glasses for years and just switched to clear ones for, rainy, darker days. Yeah, no, I switched to yellow lenses significantly after Phil did, and they're tremendous. Also, you get the added fun of when you take them off, everything looks very blue while your eyes readjust.
That's true, yeah. Yellow tinted lenses are available for many military tactical goggles. They also have different tints. You can see like an orange tint, and the principle is basically the same. If they're available for the type of goggles that you're wearing, I highly recommend that you give it a try. Typically, they're no more expensive than any other lens, any other replacement lens. But if you play in a wooded area, you will find them to be of tremendous benefit to you.
And for sort of added goodness, if you're doing that with a set of any of the goggles we were discussing that you can get replacement lenses for very easily, it also means you have probably got a spare pair of smoke lenses sitting in a case for it that you can switch to if you do damage them or if you're in a situation where you have to.
At the end of the day, what we're getting at is if you haven't prioritized your eye protection, it's certainly something you should consider doing. It's not just going to help you protect your eyes forever, but it's also going to potentially help you on the field in terms of your own performance. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of options that are available out there from form factor, different colored lenses, and so on.
So one thing in addition to that is once we're post-COVID, because at the time of recording there's no vaccine or anything yet, you'll be able to try on other people's goggles. Like people will often be like, yeah, you can try on my eyepro, not a problem. Which gives you the opportunity to see if you like something that's available locally or online better than what you're currently using.
Mm-hmm. So prioritize your eyepro, don't cheap out on it, and for the love of God, don't wear mesh. This has been a Stormriders public service announcement. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Have a good one, guys.